Right. Well, I was going to talk about the draw simple thing after last night's manic. If you saw this 30 minutes mayhem thing, and keeping it simple, I thought that I'd just do draw simple 2.0, but it struck me. I'm going to draw this lady, right? And what struck me about this really was the tones on it, because it is just masses of tone, and I'm thinking of it in terms of almost like a mosaic of tones, rather than I'm going to draw an eye in this place and an ear in this place, and there's here. I'm just not thinking. I'm thinking about it in relation to its position on the paper, and I've talked about this before, where the background is as much part of the drawing as the foreground is, and sometimes when I kind of drift towards the more narrative, the more context stuff, it tends to be less about the face and more about how everything relates to everything. So that's really what I'm looking at with this, and essentially I just see lots of tones and how they all how they all relate to each other. So let me just get my head right. I just got to get the so I can see. I've said this before, but this scribbling thing that evolved from the dots is a kind of shorthand for me. It's not for you to recognize what's happening. It's for me to establish parameters, if you like. It's more that. So if it's it appears like a scribble, it's just because that's my shorthand for this. I don't need to go into great detail, and because it's just for me. It should never. I mean, this is the thing. What I like about this kind of approach is that it's full of mistakes, and it's really. I need it to be like that. I need it to be full of mistakes, because it's not. I don't want to wait until the end to make the mistakes, or to further down the road to make mistakes. I want to make mistakes now. So that's what I do. I make lots of mistakes. So as I said, I'm thinking in terms of the shapes and the tones that define those shapes. That's all I'm doing, and the actual sort of drawing side of it, if you like. I mean, I do the alignment thing, so I am conscious of the where things align. So I'm looking now at that alignment, for instance. There, I was looking for something. Basically, what happens is I scan across to see what I can use as some, comparative measure, whether it be an alignment or a size or a tone, when I get to the tonal side of things. And so I'm always doing that, sort of looking for the things to compare with. And applying some kind of tone to it just helps me to qualify things, to make sure that they're the alignments or the size or the whatever relationship is correct. So having some kind of tone on things is for me is the way I want it to be. Let me just make sure this is recording. It is, yeah. No, I'm just thinking that of late we've had YouTube just crapping out halfway through, so I don't want to lose it if I can, because sometimes these things actually turn out all right. Like last night, it didn't, without any kind of expectation, which is one of the. This is the thing about this. I've got this. I can see this as a tonal extravaganza, if you like, but that's about as far as my expectations go. It's not really about how detailed it is. It's not going to be a great charcoal drawing. And I thought about that one, because my mate does fantastic drawings, and every time I see it, I think, does he start off thinking I'm going to make a great drawing? You know what I mean? And I don't. I just start off with being moved to do it, And I thought this morning, oh, I'm just gonna do a great drawing, make it a great drawing. But then I thought, no, because if I do that, I'll be chasing what it is, whatever it might be that I define as. Which is the guy with the glasses last night was a typical example of not really thinking too much about it and just, as you saw, just going for it. And trusting in my response. I saw somebody talking about that this morning. They're trusting the process. I always worry about that, because what's the process? Is it something you've learned? Yeah, it is, isn't it? It is. That's the answer to that. Oh, I've done it 1,000 times. I've done it 1,000,000 times in the sketchbooks, and so I've learned the process. It's habitual. And I don't like that. I like the idea of it being trusting my response. You know what I mean? I think that I said yesterday about this. If you're a human people person thing, thing, not the person, then you have a response to people, and trust in that response. Trust in the response that you can see people's essence. You can feel their what makes them special. Trust in that. If you can't trust in that, what kind of person are you? You know what I mean? It's like I don't know. It's a necessary thing. It's it's humanity. I'm in the throes of discussing various very serious things with somebody at the moment who has. It depends on ideology, and it's not a religious thing, but ideology at the root of their decision making, and it's just it's like. All I can say is that people that think like that would cause wars. It's a stupidity and just terrible. Anyway, I won't talk about it because it's a bit upsetting. But as I said, being tapping into your humanity is what we're talking about. So response is how you respond to the world, how you respond to other people, how you feel about other people. Because the thing about that is, I think what's telling about that is a lot of people, they and it's unfortunate, but it kind of, I struggle to find references that aren't, but a lot of people are drawn to beauty, predefined, what society defines as beauty. People are drawn towards that, and that's 9 times out of 10, that's people's, that's their how the response is driven, and I think because I get these images from Pinterest or wherever, and I take them into Photoshop and I fiddle with the tones and mess with the darks and things and the contrast, and I try to make it a little bit more than just a beautiful face. Unfortunately, it always will be. The proportions will be right and so on and so forth. So, but to a lot of people, that's enough. You know what I mean? So you end up getting a particular consistent type of portrait drawing. You get. People would like to draw old men beards like that one last night, obviously because of the interest thing. An older face is more interesting, so on and so forth. But also, pretty young women like this that's a common theme. There are people that draw contorted faces, people laughing and throwing their head back and yawning and whatever else. Not sure on that, other than look at me, I'm a great artist. I can draw people who are smiling or throwing their head back with, while they're yawning or what, those sort of silly ones. And to me, that's just illustration. And I'll be fine. It's just great. Look at how clever I am because I can do this kind of illustration. I think at the end of the day, though, it doesn't matter. Your response to something is all that matters, and and providing that's a genuine response, and you can muster the your skills, your human skills, to actually connect with somebody. That's all that matters, really. If it turns out to be a beautiful face, then great. If it turns out to be an ugly face, then great. It just doesn't really, or shouldn't really, play a part. You get what you get, kind of thing. Providing you trust in your response. That's the thing I'm trying to get to. But as I said, with these tones, I mean, the other thing I'd say about this as well is that when you remove the need to draw it, and it's just simply a case of, there's lots of things happening here with the hair all around there, and then there's tones that bleed into other tones. But when you remove the need to define the edges of things, and you're just responding to what you see, it's just about this arrangement of things. Because again, I'd say this the other day about the girl with the sharp shadows in her face. That area there, for instance, which is full of all different shapes, it's so much easier to do that than it is to draw something that hasn't got that kind of complication. It seems a bit daft to say that, but we're just talking about drawing now, not really responsive stuff. But it is and it isn't about responsive stuff. But when you have all these shapes that intertwine with each other, it makes it a lot easier, because you're just drawing these local shapes, and then it builds out to something else. You know what I mean? I think the other thing as well is this not adhering to the confines. I was saying that about outlines the other day. You're not adhering to the confines of and parameters of edges. I think if you look at some great portrait artists, their edges, there are no edges most of the time. There is just nothing. There is just something that defines or implies some kind of stop or some kind of tonal change, which is normally what an edge is. It's just the tones it's a different tone. It might be a sharp change or a sharp stop in that particular tonal value, but that's all it is. It's just where two tones meet, and they might be quite abrupt, and they might be quite different in terms, but it's just where tones stop. So there is no real outline as such, and that in itself, when you're drawing, let's say something like that, when it's all about these different tones that are in there, and all of a sudden it becomes less complicated and less difficult, which is a contradiction. Right? So, like I said about the girl with the highlights on her face rather, the fact that it suddenly got all these different shapes on it, just in itself, you think, oh, it's complicated, that. But it's not. That's where it kind of contradicts what you think it is. And it goes back to this thing about, I'm going to make a great charcoal drawing. I'm going to make a great, and really, it's almost, if you do like respond properly, and then you see things as they are, rather than trying to second guess something. Noses should be like this. I saw this thing this morning, which was a bit silly, right? This woman had got on her own face, had drawn lines across the nose in some crazy, I don't know what that's all about, but, and I didn't have the sound on because everybody was in bed, so I was just watching it, and I thought, what the hell is she doing that for? She's drawing all these lines across the nose. There must be a valid reason for it, but I thought, oh, that's a bit daft, isn't it? That's a bit daft. How does that help? See, the thing is that I always and I think we all do it. I always underestimate the observational side of things, the seeing part of what we do, and the importance of seeing. I think that is just, if that's the only thing you focus on, then that's good enough, you know. So if you're seeing and what you see is driven by how, you know, your response, then pretty much you're gonna capture what you need to capture. It's gonna happen. But just mechanicking stuff, I've never really thought that was ever a good idea. You know, unless you're an illustrator, obviously. I think that you know, that's the thing that is fundamental. I think is with all these things, is that if you're illustrating, it's important that you get things exactly where they should be. It's not a it's not a freehand. I saw somebody else this morning talking about when he works on, and which is crazy. This is not true, right? If this is you, then you're doing it wrong, right? But this guy, he said when he was painting for himself, he's like throwing paint around and all that. He'd done something silly with putting paint on his body and all that. But when he was working with somebody else, it was very reserved and all, you know, as a commission. That's not right, is it? That's not right. That's illustration. You know, if you're an artist and you make work and they want to buy what you do, they want to buy what you do. They don't want to buy it so you can do it like they wanted you to do it. Surely that's not right. You know, and I know that's what people do. You know, these people make family portraits. I know that's what they do. You know. I think the nearest you're going to get to that is with somebody. There are some that will are fortunate enough to get people to sit for them, but some will just create a photograph and work from a photograph. And in a way, that's a liberating thing, because they can then be themselves. You'd think, but it depends on what they are. I mean, if there are these classical traditional portrait artists, then they're nothing but that. You know, so someone's going to get exactly that, you know, which is 9 times out of 10 when somebody put on one of my comments and they said, if you'd commissioned somebody to create a portrait and they didn't capture your likeness, then you would be a little bit miffed by it. I suppose, yeah, you know, but why did you employ an artist that has a particular style and then expect them to do it in a style that you would like them to do it in? That's not right, is it? I don't know. That's how it works, unfortunately, isn't it? That's how the people do it. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to focus, you know, now that things are now sort of getting in the right place, sizes are a bit off, whatever, I'm going to work on it as more of a tonal thing. So where tones are going to be, you know, the interplay between the tones and the shape of the face, or I'm going to work on all of that. So it's not just a case of building up the face with tones. It's everything. I want to build all of it up, because this is the thing about it. It's because it's a because it is a tonal. I'll worry about that in a minute. But because it is such a tonal thing, you know, the whole thing has a tonality about it. Then I'm going to work on everything. So say all at once, whether it's the background or whether it's the foreground, you know, the head itself. So I think what happens is, because I'm trying to create this tonal context, as I'm adding tones to it, I'm adding, you know, the background to it and so on and so forth. It's affecting everything else, and that's part of this, you know, it feeling real is this. I've got to have every tone for it to have the right feel of this particular image. You know, it's got sort of a subdued look about it. I've got to build the tones up accordingly. And I'll probably have to take things away and all the rest of it. But as I'm doing it, I'm rectifying all the tonal values as well. So there's that's a big one that is way out that needs to be, and the ones up here as well. So and as you can see, as it now sort of gets entangled within everything, you know, some of these lines that are there that and the hair that comes down there and everything gets entangled, and it's the minute changes in tones that I'm looking for. See, for instance, that there is a definite edge to the end of a nose there, right? But it's not a dark edge. It's very subtle. The difference between there and there is very subtle, and I'll probably have to make that differentiate those edges with a rubber to make them a bit more precise, a bit more sharper in there. I was thinking about I think it was one of the ones I was doing yesterday, was the strength of the tones, even on you know it was the thing underneath the nose, whatever that's called, and it was it was just too dark. Like, you know, if someone said to me, just explain what I need to change on it, I couldn't tell you. I'd just say that bit there is a bit too dark, you know. Not for any other reason than by what I see. You know, I just see on the reference that it's lighter than what, and sometimes I can see things that throw out the balance. I can see the tones that will throw out the balance. It might throw out the physicality. You see how that's doing it there? The physical shape of it is actually being distorted by the tones. So sometimes the tones will do that. You know, if you haven't got the tones quite right, it will do that. And the other thing about charcoal, particularly when I'm talking about this kind of thing, the more tonally the more tonal approach, it can be minuscule things that affect it, you know, very, very tiny, which is sometimes when you see me tapping off, you know, the sort of tapping off the tones, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to just kill the weight, you know, the tone. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to blend or smooth it with a stump or anything. That's the one thing I try and steer clear of. You've probably seen me not using, or you've noticed that I don't use those things. I think it was the two reasons why initially was because once you rubbed it, you know, the charcoal into the paper, you couldn't take it off, so it was difficult to rectify. And in the early days, I was always moving things around, you know, moving the mouth around, and I've moved eyes significantly, you know. But you couldn't do it if I'd smudged it with one of those things. But the other thing about it is that once I mean, you can see when I do it with my fingers, it's quite smooth. But once you make everything smooth, you know, and it's all blended, it takes a precedent of everything else. I don't want it to be all smooth and blended. So And that's I think that's just a personal choice. I don't think it's a way of doing it that's preferred. It's just preferred by me, obviously, but I'm not saying that you should do it. I'm just going to sharpen this charcoal before I start working on the harder lines that define this. Make sure that I start doing that. I've got the background in place, but otherwise I'm going to be smudging them out again. So, chin's a bit big, but so I'll look at that. Yeah, so yeah, I'm going to sharpen this. I'm going to have an edge on it. Sometimes I've got to have an edge. I can get away with so far because I like the idea of not having an edge on it because it stops you from trying to draw. But at some point, like now, I'm going to have to be more precise in where I put the marks. So It's a different paper, by the way. Don't ask me which paper it is, but it's just some paper that was on the pile. I pulled some drawings out of a pile, and these. Oh no, it was in one of the folders. So don't ask me why. I might have just put it in there thinking it was good paper and saving it for a rainy day or something, but I've no idea. I think the edge there, there is a slight haze on it, but I might have to this mark making thing, you know, I pushed it, I pull it, you know, I do all sorts of things with it. There's no finesse sometimes in the mark making. It's just what I feel about it. Again, this is the, you know, driven by response thing. You know, the lines are a consequence of how I'm responding, and also some of the things when it gets to like this, where it doesn't really matter that much. You know, something like is good enough, and if it just some of the highlights show through, that's fine. But it's back to what I was saying about beards yesterday. Sometimes people spend too much time worrying about the wrong things, and a beard can be like hair, can be a secondary thing. You know, the Robert and Rye thing about it's the most important. Hair is the most important thing, but don't try and draw it thing. It's that. So now what I've got to do is I'm just going to look at alignments, say, and distance as well. I'm looking at this distance here. It's quite a shorter. It's, you know, it's not as far out as that. So there is going to come about there. Right, it's about right now. So now I can then worry about this distance here. So this is where the hair is coming right out to there. Not, as I said before, this because this is a tonal thing. Not really bothered about it being, you know, definite edges. I'm going to make it a definite edge to some extent, but all of it's going to run in one into another. Yeah. So I think overall, with something like this, where it's quite what appears quite random, I think a lot of this is just get the overall shape. You know, even if it's just the outer extremities of the hairs that's indicating the outer shape of the, you know, the hair itself. I think that's the thing to go for, rather than trying to make it initially. You know, because you'll chase it all the way and then find out it's not quite right. So I think most of the time when I'm drawing hair, it ends up when I'm going to make it a little bit bigger or whatever. And that stems from this observation. What does that head fit under that hair kind of thing? And we all know that because we've all seen hair on thousands of faces. We know whether it looks right or not. We don't have to measure it, by the way. That's not. Some might, but they might even draw on their own face. You don't get me doing that, by the way. That's not going to be none of that malarkey. It's like, it's an easy way. Just draw on your own face and you can just see where the contours are. And which I think that's what they were doing. It's just like, it's daft, isn't it? Honestly, you tell me it's not daft. So now, I'm going to sharpen it again to put these tones in. But now, what needs to be done is need to fix the tones. You can see the imbalance. You can see it there. Look, for instance, it working there, and some of it works up here as well. It wants to be fixed there. It's out of balance here, but as I said, because it's tonal, and I'm going to be more, precise in the way that these relate to each other, these edges, and up the top there as well. And she's got a white coat on, so this is just going to come down here. Whether or not I do a chest or whether it just fades out, I don't know yet. I think the most important thing though is that getting that. Drop my rubber. Hold on. There you go. I think the most important thing though is getting this relationship here working. This is where it all happens. This is where the mood is set. I know the hair is kind of doing that, but right there is what we're after. So getting that is the key to it. So yeah, let me just fix the chin a minute. My rubbers aren't that good, so it's a good and a bad thing, that, because I don't end up taking off too much, but sometimes I do need to remove, to make that definite white edge there, for instance. But it's okay. It's okay. I'm not going to fuss too much about it. I think that most of that is to do with the paper. I don't think it's anything to do with the rubber. If the paper doesn't release, so to speak, the charcoal. I'm just thinking about the neck and the chest area, because I think always you see that then, oh, that changes everything. I think always when there's a an indication of the neck. Mint, look at that. Awesome. I'm easy to please, aren't I? But that's just what I'm trying to do with it, it's sort of trying to give the head a platform, if you like. I think now, to be honest with you, it's all about refinement of the tones. So the problem is with this one, I've rubbered that edge there, and this damaged the paper, so it doesn't take the charcoal that well. And when I smudge it like that, it's a little bit waxy. So sometimes, it'll get a little bit dirty on the edge. So sometimes it's better to not to try, to do that kind of thing. Another reason why, if you're using a stump, that would definitely be a problem, because you've already knocked the surface of the paper back by rubbing the with a hard I don't know what they call them, begins with T, I know, but with a stump, it just pushes it into the paper. So, which isn't the same, which I'm not a fan. So when I'm doing like this, what I'm doing is I'm putting the oil of my fingers into the paper, which is not good, but I'm not going to be wanting to rub out on this bit anyway, so it's not a problem for that reason. But just wanted it to be a little bit, I think the shoulder is a little bit tighter there, a little bit sharper on that corner there, so it goes more like that, and then to a tight edge there. Looking at alignments, I think the alignment, that's quite a bit out, so it wants to be from a shoulder to there and then down. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to fight with it. It's all right. It's all right. As long as the balance is right, it looks like the the width of the shoulder look right. Then I'm okay with that. Yeah, so I'm gonna put a little bit more detail into this, into the edges of the hair, and then these kind of cumulatively affect the tone anyway. You know, the edges of things are going to affect the tonal value around here anyway, and the you know, whether it almost blurs into the background because of it. Actually, on the image, it's quite definitive around the edge, but it's dark here, you know, and I think that's part of the reason why I liked it. I like the, you know, you can see what happens. You see, it gives it that feel. The edge is a problem here, so there's no edge there, so it needs to be. Back to these, you know, I was talking about the minuscule changes in tonal value. That's one of those. A friend of mine, I call him a friend, internet friend, John Faranoff. Just check him out because his work is just off the scale, really amazing. But his minute manipulation of tones is incredible, absolutely incredible. I think that's one of the reasons why I like charcoal to be easy to apply. You know, if it takes some pressure to apply it rather than it just drifting across as it is now, it makes these little finer tweaks really difficult. You have to apply pressure to it, and it's not really good when doing that. You don't really want that. So I think the angle of that there is not quite right. It's not. It's better now. You know, that, and I think also the straightness of it is probably a little straighter than that. The eyes, it's about right, but it's not. Yeah, it's about right, that, I think. Yeah. Right, I'm going to leave it at that, and as I say, I'll just carry on tinkering with the edges of it and sorting out that, and then fixing the tones a little better. I think it's working quite well here because of the you know, the focus on the face itself. But it's just the finessing of everything. I think that's the thing that I want to just sort out. This is still popping too much. It's still too, you know, the balance of it's not right. So that's got to go back down. Not much, but just, as you can see, just putting a few lines onto it just to make it a little bit more balanced. And then all this hair here is the background of it all is quite dark by comparison to here, for instance. The same down here is not a highlight here. It's lighter, but it's not a highlight, so that has to be fixed. Yeah, you see that looks better already. And then obviously the graduation. There's no, the hard edge there. There is no line there, so that has to come out. Yeah, it's still too dark. That again, it's back to this close. You know, the closeness of the tonal values. It's better. Yeah, better. I'm going to fix the nose. I'm going to fix the top lip and the nose, I think. Yeah, so wants to just cut in a little bit there. Almost. It's a little bit big now. Yeah, a little bit bigger. It's about right though in terms of the alignments. You know, these kind of alignments, that's what I'm looking at. Yeah, a little bit big, a little bit more back there a bit. It just finishes about there. Let's take some of that off. Yeah, yeah. And then the bottom lip there, looking like it's just been pushed out a little bit. It's not. Okay, yeah, so as I say, I'm going to be just tweaking little things like that and gradually getting it to be, I'm looking at my alignments there, so I've got a chin that's about there, so. Yeah. Yep. A little better. Still nuts out, a little bit out. So I'll keep refining that. I'll try and get the definite white edge there if I can, although I don't think I can with this rubber. Not really critical to some degree, it's not. But yeah, it's there. Let me yeah, it's there. And then move the shoulder up a little bit to where it sort of points there and then drops down. Yeah, better. You see, some of the things that you know, when you work on things and there is a residue of marks or tones left behind, I quite like that. I think it gives it a more real edge to it. I once saw it on. There's a great artist logging off. I think a Russian guy. If you see his courses, go on his courses. They're amazing. I haven't been on them. I can't afford them. But I mean, looking at the quality of his work, I would imagine he's a great teacher. But I once saw him draw something like this, really, and the amount of times he worked to get the edge right on the face. He didn't get it right the first time, and he worked it over, and you can see the residue of all the lines that he'd applied to try and find the edge with accuracy. And I loved all that. I thought it was absolutely mint, because it was like it just gave the edge of the face life, you know, in this almost vibrative, vibrative way. It was just I just thought it just showed, I think, the evolution of his response. You know, getting better and better, recognizing and refining the edge of the face. But I think that's just me. I think a lot of people. I just like. I think that gives it just a different edge. But I think a lot of people would think that was just, you should have got it right first time, and they would try and remove any remnants of, you know, the previous attempts to get the line, you know, the edges right or the shape right. Personally, I say I like it, but I can imagine a lot of people wouldn't like it. Yep. Tonally, again, they're just, you can see the minor undulations in tone that are affecting it. And I'll probably spend a long time trying to make them work. But not in a smooth or blended way. That's not really my thing. So I still want it to be I want it to feel like a drawing. I think that's the thing that is big for me. Right, I'm going to go now before I ramble on any more than I should. And yeah, it's just tones, and this is the thing that matters. I'm going to fix all the rest of it. I'm going to get, you know, the as you can see, the inner undulations of the charcoal to replicate the flow of the hair. But yeah, that's just a evolutionary thing. I just keep refining it. Right, let's say I'm going now.